The Trump administration says it reached a deal to acquire a 10% stake in the chip-making company Intel. The stake is worth about $9 billion, which appears to be related to the $10.9 billion in grants the 2022 CHIPS and Science Act awarded to the company.
Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick wrote on X, "This historic agreement strengthens U.S. leadership in semiconductors, which will both grow our economy and help secure America's technological edge. Thanks to Intel CEO for striking a deal that's fair to Intel and also fair to the American people."
Intel says the Trump administration will be paying for their $8.9 billion investment with CHIPS Act grant money. The administration will not have any board representation or other governance or information rights. Intel CEO Lip Bu Tan said in a statement, quote, "We are grateful for the confidence the president and the administration have placed in Intel, and we look forward to working to advance U.S. technology and manufacturing leadership."
Many libertarians and conservatives in particular, however, were not very fond of this move. Senator Rand Paul wrote on X, "If socialism is government owning the means of production, wouldn't the government owning part of Intel be a step toward socialism? This is a terrible idea." Former House Freedom Caucus Chair Bob Good also chimed in, writing, "How about just cancel the Intel subsidies instead of government owning a stake in a private business and unfairly competing against other businesses?"
Others, however, see it as a good thing. Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks wrote on X, "Old school conservatives are saying Trump's plan to take a 10% stake in Intel for American taxpayers in exchange for our financial help is socialism. Truth is exact opposite. In capitalism, if you invest in a company, you get equity. This is one of the best things Trump is doing." Did not see that coming.
I like Cenk Uygur, but this is a bad take. Not only do I disagree with this might be the single thing Trump has done so far that I hate the most. It's so funny.
Awful. I knew I was hosting with you today, and when I saw it over the weekend, I was like, well, Robby's not going to like that.
No, it is exactly as Rand Paul said. This is the textbook definition of socialism, and it creates, and it said that we don't need to use socialism as a scare word all the time, but the incentives it creates are just so bad. I already don't like the CHIPS Act. I don't like doing what is essentially welfare for corporations, that then they're going to, make all these plants in America, and
they're going to give it back.
They don't even make the plants. They're like, oh, we got held up by environmental.
Oh, the CEO needed another $100 million bonus.
That or whatever.
Yeah.
You can't predict how the businesses are actually going to spend this money and whether it's going to translate to another dime in terms of jobs for the American people. So you should just let the market work, let them compete. Let it work. Like this will create incentives for future legislators to want to award more things to Intel because the government owns part of it. I mean, you can't once you've crossed that Rubicon, then don't tell me the government is not going to start doing policy that is favorable to Intel or is micromanaging it in some other way. Like that will be the inevitable result of having the government have an ownership stake in it.
So I just want to make sure I understand this. There was about $10 billion allocated in federal funds in the CHIPS and Science Act to Intel. Yes. So basically what the Trump administration did is say, well, we want something for the money we already gave you. So we're gonna say that we effectively bought a 10% share in the company.
Yes.
And the justification, give me the anti-Robby, give me the devil's advocate of why this makes sense. The jank,
really
as
hard.
We call it.
I guess they're gonna say that. Well, people who have no love of private industry will say that maybe the government should be managing this important, vital national. The chips are a national
there's a national security
resource,
interest. Yeah.
And so we can't lose out to China, and so we have to prop up our own industry.
But if we have to prop up our own industry or our own company, doesn't that suggest that we're not doing it good enough, well enough?
Precisely that.
Right.
The government is not good at running business. The government isn't. I would argue the government is good at very little. It's certainly not good at running private industries. I mean, we've run the experiment, not we, America, but like human society has run the experiment where the government centralizes control of a company and decides this is how many pallets of boxes shall be shipped. This is how much porcelain should be worth. This is how much, and it creates crippling depression every single time. So you'd think we would learn not to do that. And Trump also hasn't said Intel's, for whatever reason, for chips is a special case and we're only doing it for this company.
We're carving out an exception.
We're going to do this all the time in the future. What all the time in the future have the government owning parts of companies? That's so bad. It's so bad. This is what the road to serfdom is all about, my friends. It's not good.
It is amazing.
I don't get it.
It is amazing to me. I was thinking of this when the One Big Beautiful Bill passed too. It's like 10 years ago. One of the core principles of the Republican Party, of conservatism, not even the Republican Party, was debt and deficits out of control. Right? McCain ran fundamentally on that.
But they never thought they'd actually have the power to do something about them. So it was easy to complain about them.
Right, because it's a problem you can't. You're not really in charge.
Well, we don't have
fixing.
power. You have to put us in power, and then we'll fix it. Okay, you're in power now.
But then
fix
they didn't.
Right.
And then this is the same thing. It's like, wait, I thought we wanted government out of the private industry. Again, that when I was coming up in covering politics, my 20s and 30s, just the late 90s, 2000s, that was, again, core, a central tenet. So is this just like conservatism isn't what it once was? I mean, that Trump has just fundamentally reinvented all of it, including this? Because there's no conservative, as I think of it, 2012 era. There's no conservative defense of this, right?
Well, what conservative means has changed. Conservative used to mean social conservatism,
yes, which is out there.
Economic libertarianism, limited government conservatism.
Let the market work.
Yeah.
Yep.
And a neoconservative foreign policy. Those were the three-legged stool of the conservative movement. Trump is liked, even though he is not personally really socially conservative, he is very well liked by social conservatives, and he has not changed. He's maybe what they focus on culturally is slightly different, but he hasn't totally upended GOP.
No, he hasn't said we're now pro-choice.
Right, it's none of that. He has totally upended it on foreign policy. He's not a neoconservative. Being neoconservative is out of fashion in the Republican Party. He's made people who are proud neoconservatives, like Marco Rubio, repudiate aspects of that policy. Then the economic stuff is mixed, where he has changed parts of it. The party's much more pro-tariffs than it used to be, suspicious of international trade, but also there's still talk about getting rid of regulations and being low taxes.
And tax cuts. And right. That stuff is traditional.
That stuff is basically still being fought over. And Trump changes his mind from day to day. Some days Trump sounds like a economic libertarian about wanting to bring down, again, do tax cuts, get rid of red tape and regulation, wants to do deals. The impulse to do deals can be a free market trade type thing. At the same time, he has a very I'm in charge of the government, so it should be favorable for me, the government, and that can be.
He runs it like a business.
Hands-off referee, just have it some rules and regulations that are fair for everyone, and do competition. And that's really not. He sees himself as a combatant in the marketplace, so he wants to get the best deal for him he possibly can, which makes sense if you're an individual firm. Doesn't make sense if you're the one setting the rules for all the firms.
Which, by the way, I think is why he doesn't understand Jerome Powell. That exact thing that you said. Jerome Powell and the Fed broadly doesn't view themselves as a combatant within rates and the economy. They view themselves as kind of this overarching, where the puppeteer. Right. And Trump doesn't get that because he doesn't understand that's a thing. But I just don't know.
I mean, what if Barack Obama had tried to take a 10% stake in General Motors?
I mean,
or tried to own, or Bush or Obama tried to own part of those are already kind of government, quasi-government.
But
more of that. We want less of that. We want less of that.
And that's the thing I don't understand. If he said, in terms of can this possibly be defended by traditional conservatives? If he said, this is exactly what you said, this is a one-time carve-out because it's in our national security interest to win this chip race, and we are going to make sure we are involved in this in a very real way. But he didn't say that. And in fact, he opened the door for maybe this is a blueprint for other things that we're going to take ownership in. It just does not make sense to me. Any principle, again, I've now said I agree with Rand Paul and Marjorie Taylor Greene, but I do with Rand Paul. He's not wrong about this. Makes no sense if you view the world as the private market is the great driver of American capitalism, that the government should have no role in. There's no way to defend that.
And also, no one can answer why the chip plants themselves have to be in the U.S. Okay, I get it. They maybe shouldn't be in Taiwan, because that's concerning, but can they be in Morocco? Can they be in Malaysia? Can they be in
why do they have to be here?
Can they be in... They need to be where it is cost-effective for them to be produced, independent of government subsidies. Because if you can only create this industry by pumping American tax dollars into it, you're not actually creating
It's not an industry. That's exactly right. We have a lot more to talk about on The Rising. A lot more. So make sure you stay with us.